Hello again, welcome to our weekly chat via Zoom here on everything sponsored by Zoom at the moment, Sheffield Live TV. Now, it's not often you get the privilege to open the batting with Michael Vaughan, but I'm delighted to say that the first guest on this week's show is none other than the former Yorkshire and England captain. Hello, Michael.
Afternoon, Al. Opening the batting with me, I don't think you'll last long.
I don't know. I was just going to block one end, and you were going to knock them at the other. That was the idea.
One or both of us will get out quickly, don't we? That was generally the case when I used to open the bat. I'd have a dash, get out, or entertain for a half an hour or so. I'll try not to run you out.
Hey, don't do yourself down. And of course, we're reminded at the moment, Michael, of a special time in your life and in the life of the nation, because the one good thing about lockdown, I mean, there aren't that many good things, but I don't know, the reflections and putting things into context, 2005 has cropped up time and time again. Are you enjoying that aspect of it, or are you just hankering for, come on, let's look to the future again rather than looking back?
Yeah, I'll be totally honest with you, Alan. Apart from I had to do an hour for Sky on Sunday, the last hour of the Edgbaston Test match. I know they'd replayed the whole 4 days. I know they'd replayed the World Cup final. Ben Stokes' incredible innings last year at Headingley. But I'll be totally honest, I felt lockdown has been a chance for me to reboot from cricket. I've been involved in cricket for 30 years, love it, very fortunate to do what I do. But I made a pact weeks ago when we started lockdown that I was going to try and just get away from it, not watch anything, just try and rejig my mind into other things. I've got into, never thought I'd say that. Found a lawnmower again. I don't think I've mowed the lawn since my dad made me back in probably 1987, 1988 with a fly mowing the garden in Gore Village. I haven't mowed the lawn since then. So I've been trying to reboot and do things, play with the kids and just be kind of the dad at home. So I haven't been watching, but that last hour that I had to watch and obviously take part in the TV kind of watch along with Steve Harmison and Nasser Hussain and Rob Key. I've never ever watched it fully the whole hour. I've never and there were so many things as a captain that I look back and I got wrong. I'm thinking, why did I have that cover point on the boundary to Michael Kaslovic? You know, with 3 balls remaining in the over, that he could just knock the one and then Brett Lee would be back on strike. There was many times. I saw I had 2 square legs at one time, 2 catches. So I'm like, what we're doing back then. So it's funny when you watch things back, and the drama and obviously us winning was great, but it also reminded me of how good a team Australia were, because we threw everything at them. I mean, Harmison and Freddie were bowling 90 miles an hour, getting a little bit of movement, and Brett Lee was playing like a Trojan. And then you kind of panned into that viewing gallery and you saw Hayden, Langer, Ponting, Vaughan, McGrath obviously was injured, Gillespie, Adam Gilchrist, some real superstar names. So it was good memories to kind of go back, even though it was a bit nervous watching the other day. But it was good to see the last hour to see actually how it panned out and the tactical side of what I was trying to deliver, of which at times I think I got it completely wrong.
But you know the outcome, and yet you still get nervous, and you're in the moment, and you're not actually sure what comes next with each ball. So you're rediscovering it again, I suppose.
Yeah, and then also just little reminders of, you know, certain players that were in the team that were, you know, triggered back to me how important, you know, Geraint Jones was. He was one of those wicket keepers that got a lot of criticism because he'd made mistakes, but it just reminded me of how important he was for the team. You know, to have a character like that in the dressing room. His relationship with the 4 quick bowlers was immense, brilliant for me as a captain. Seeing Ashley Giles, you know, he's now the director of English cricket, but again, a wonderful member of that team that just delivered his job, delivered his skill. Over the wicket, left arm spin. I wouldn't say spin at all times. It was left arm rollers most of the time, but he just delivered his job. Simon Jones was magnificent bowler. And his test career was cut short by injury. And then you've got Hoggy with that huge hairstyle that he had back in the day, just the Trojan who would just run through a brick wall for any captain and work so hard for any team. And then Strauss, Trescothick, Ian Bell, Kevin Peterson, obviously that was the start of his test career, and the outstanding Freddie Flintoff. So I kind of was just reminded of that team, really. I mean, people asking me about it a lot, the 2005 actually, but just watching back and seeing the faces and just seeing the team operate. We operated really well as a unit. Every single player in that 11 just knew their roles, knew what they were supposed to try and deliver, whether you were an attacking batsman, an aggressive all-rounder, gear out behind the stumps, just delivering his kind of mentality to the team. It was nice to actually see that team back in operation.
It wasn't just the team that was a unit; it was the nation that was a unit at that time, which is something you miss with cricket now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think last year we got it. I think so many years when we've been involved in Ashes series, we've always been asked, can it be like 2005? Well, I thought the whole of 2019 for cricket was exactly the same. I thought it just seemed to grab the nation, particularly that World Cup final. I think Sky deserve a lot of credit for releasing it on free to air, getting it back on Channel 4, and it almost sent the message of what it was like back in 2005, where all the nation were watching. People were stopping what they were doing. Ben Stokes winning Sports Personality of the Year, exactly the same as what happened in 05 with Freddie Flintoff. Headingley that Sunday at Leeds. Again, it's just coincidences. You've got great all-rounders. You go back to 1981 at Headingley in both of them. 2019, a great all-rounder in Ben Stokes, pretty much doing exactly the same. It's remarkable in sport how these kind of scenarios take place and happen in generations that have gone, and I'm sure in the future there'll be another all-rounder that produces some heroics at Headingley probably in 30, 40 years' time. It's great to see. It was good for cricket last summer. Really disappointed, actually, that what's happening now has not given cricket that platform to go on. And for us all to see Ben, Josh Buttler, Joe Root, Stuart Broad, Jimmy Anderson, Moen. England have got some high-quality individuals within that team and a very collective unit that Joe's starting to build in the Test arena in particular. I think it's been Joe Root's best year in Test captaincy. I think he's found his mojo. I think he's found the mechanism of how he wants his team to operate, and he's had some success for it with his obviously series win in South Africa. So I'm disappointed for them that they've not had that opportunity to go out in front of the public this summer. But I'm sure we'll see some cricket, but I don't think we'll see cricket, obviously, with 30,000 England fans in there singing and dancing and behaving like they generally do at the cricket venues. But I'm sure at some stage we'll see them in action. Okay.
Well, just before we leave 2005, it was a special year in other respects as well, because it's well known that you're a fan of a certain Sheffield club, and that was a special year. But I'm not sure that you remember too much about the climax of that. That was 2005, Millennium Stadium, Cardiff, Sheffield Wednesday versus Hartlepool in the playoff final. We know that the Owls won 4-2. Have you got much recollection of the day itself? There's a reason why I'm asking. You know that.
No, I mean the day before was great, because as England captain, I always feel you've got the power to do whatever you wish. And I always remember, and I look back and think, why did Duncan Fletcher fall out with me? Well, I declared early to make sure that we beat Bangladesh in time for me to get to the final. And he thought we should have batted on to give our batsmen more chance to bat out in the middle, because obviously the Ashes were coming just around the corner. We wanted 2 or 3 of those lower order batsmen to get a bat just to get a bit of time in the middle. I went, nah, no chance. So I declared, won the game, celebrated in London with a Test win, got driven to I think it was the Vale of Glamorgan hotel to pick up my tickets, got thrown out of a car, absolutely wrecked, bumped into Lee Bullen. Lee was there, I was picking my tickets up, then got taken into Cardiff City Centre. It must have only been 9:45, 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that. Couldn't find a bar, and then this guy shouted to me in the restaurant, he said, "Oh, come in here, come and drink in here, we'll open for you." So me and 2 or 3 of my mates went in there, and who sat in the corner? Big Ron. Big Ronnie Atkinson was sat there. So me and Ron ended up having a few sherbets, in and around a few Wednesdayites. Managed to get to the ground somehow, I don't know how. It was a long few hours before the game. Wednesday win. And I always remember that night, I was staying at the team. I think the team had gone. I got back and I couldn't find any of them. I don't know where they were. But I was in town celebrating in and amongst West Ham fans because they were playing the next day. It was the most thrill. But having the chance to have 4 or 5 hours with Big Ronnie, one of my favourites is Big Ron, and just chew the fat, sing a few Wednesday songs. Seeing Big Ron singing a few of the Wednesday songs before the game was something that I'll always hold in my memory. But I guess that's the power of the captaincy, that you can do whatever you wish when you're England captain. If you have to declare to get to a cup final, that's exactly what you have to do.
Yeah, Ron Atkinson mentioned this story to me recently, and of course he knows how to have a good time, and he's been around people who know how to have a good time. But he said you were, in words to the effect, if you were one of the best imbibers he'd ever known, he'd never forgotten that night. Whereas you might have, he'd never forgotten it.
Oh, we had a great time. It was those days, and that's why we love football so much, for those opportunities to be in a cup final. A few years ago, I remember I was working at the test match at the Riverside in Durham, and got a chopper down to watch the playoff final against Hull. And the noise that I remember, just being in a taxi from being dropped off, and you could just hear Wednesdayites down all the streets leading into Wembley. And then there's that shopping mall now that it was just a massive blue and white. They're all singing the songs, the whole game sung. We obviously lost and didn't get up to the Premiership, but those kind of days. I remember being a kid going to the Rumbelows final when we beat Man U. Mum and Dad took me and my brother down, and I was right at the front, the old Wembley, right, I could hardly see, but those days live strong in my memory. The playoffs, obviously, beating the Blades. Sorry, I'll mention that. Beating the Blades at Wembley. It's always a nice memory for me as well. But I love. I mean, cricket obviously is my job. It's my passion. But I absolutely adore football. If I could have been a footballer, I would have been. I was not good enough.
Hey, you did play, didn't you? You did play.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was at Wednesday for a bit. Yeah, when I was a kid. Clive Baker was the scout, and he ran the academy. And one Easter, he kind of got a group of 40 or 50 in, and said, by the end of the week, it'll be next year's intakes, and I'm going to take on board and give more coaching and more opportunity. I think you were going to be asked to go back on a Tuesday and a Thursday night. I didn't make the Tuesday that week. got rid of me on the Monday night. Got in the car. Mum said, you just stick to cricket. You're better at cricket. I've never really wanted to tell you that, but please just stick to cricket. Your football's okay. You enjoy it, but you've got no chance.
What position, by the way?
I played up front. I think I created that number 10 role. Do you know that one in the hole? I went into the hole where I knew I wouldn't be able to get tackled and I couldn't get kicked. So I think I created that hole.
Hey, but talking of the hole, I can't let you depart 2005 and Cardiff without asking you. Lee Bullen's reminded me this morning a certain story about you falling out of a lift on the morning of the game. True or false?
No, it's true. It was true. It was at the hotel. I'd said that my celebrations in London for the test when I got driven to Cardiff, and I was staying at that hotel. So I checked in, got to my room, and as I was coming down the lift, and I opened the lift door, I just stumbled out the lift, and who was there? Lee Bullen. He was being all sensible, preparing himself for the match, and I stumbled out, and that was the moment we got into Cardiff, and we met Big Ronnie Atkinson. Yeah,
the paparazzi missed that moment. More's a pity. Otherwise, we'd be showing pictures of it now. Great memories. Obviously, I mean, you follow Sheffield Wednesday from afar. You probably don't get an opportunity to see them very often. You've relived there with us some great times. Been some quite depressing times recently. What do you make of it?
I mean, again, it's hard when you're so far away. I mean, I work a lot in Australia now, and obviously I get the games. It's amazing what you can see. Even when you're on the other side of the world, you get every game, so you watch it. It's difficult with the infrastructure of the club. From afar, I get it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look right for me that ownership's difficult. People have got to put a lot of money in to run these football clubs, so I completely understand that the owner has a huge amount of investment in the club. But I look at infrastructure, and I look at leadership. I look at the kind of drive of the process of making sure that you've got youngsters coming through your system. I look at, a blueprint for the way that you play. And I don't see that at Sheffield Wednesday at the minute. I don't see the leadership. I don't see the blueprint. I don't see the conveyor belt of local talent that have the opportunity to come through and play for the club. It has looked a little bit like a mismatch for a few years, and that's just me telling the truth. And unfortunately for Sheffield Wednesday, they're being taught how to do it by the other side of the city, and it's being taught by someone who's very close to me. I mean, Chrissy Wild he obviously manages United, and I should hate him, but he's one of my good pals, and he has been for many, many years. He's been a pal since the early, to mid '90s, where we were both all around the same group. We'd play five-a-side. I'd go and watch him play football. He'd watch me play cricket. We drank lots together down Ecclesall Road. We used to end up in the cricketers' arms at the away end. He was around 05 when I was playing in that Ashes series. He was at the World Cup final last year. We were drinking after that. And he has done at United what I know it's difficult to just copy, but from what I see, he can just deliver management, and he can manage people. People understand the roles. He's got a great ethic, great work. If he'd have been a foreign manager, I really do believe there'd have been books made of the way that he plays. Because he's Chris Wilder, just a local kid. They're all, I heard it, mentioned so much when I was in Australia. United, they're maybe getting a bit lucky. I'm going, nonsense. He has done a remarkable job. And it's just process. You think about when he took over to what he's delivered, his win percentage and what he's kind of produced. You could argue, could Pep Guardiola have done the same with the budget? I'd say maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, Pep's unbelievable. Jose Mourinho's unbelievable. But, I really do believe if Chris Wilder had been foreign, there'd have been that many books written about him, DVDs. It would have been the art of football management. But because he's Chris Wilder, and he probably enjoys and likes being under the radar somewhat, but he has done a remarkable job. Absolutely astonishing what he's done at Sheffield United.
Yeah, indeed, the respect is coming, I think. And as far as Sheffield Wednesday are concerned, instead of resenting the success of the neighbours, from what you're saying, just learn from it. Watch it.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared of copying your rivals. And that's, I go back to 2003. I got the England captaincy. The first thing I did is said, right, we're copying them. Copy Australia. What do? They play aggressive, play with no fear. They have players in the side that can change a test match inside 2 hours. We need more of that style of player. We've got to free the players up to be more understanding that you've got to take more risks. I think risks in sport is an element of how you succeed, but you've got to allow your player to make mistakes. And that's one of the crucial things that I see. I mean, you don't want them to make mistakes, but they have to have that platform of management that, if you have a go and you have a pop and you're trying to beat the opposing team by doing something, don't be worried about making a mistake. And that's what I learned from Australia. And if I was Sheffield Wednesday now, I would be absolutely looking at Sheffield United and going, what have they done that we could copy? What is it that they're doing that we could bring to Hillsborough, bring to Middlewood Road, bring to the training ground, bring to our system that it could just add as a 2-3% margin in terms of improvement. It might be more than 2 to 3%. You never know, but it's very difficult sometimes to copy something when it's about an individual person. And that had been my only fear, is that I honestly think it's Chris Wilder. And the way that he manages and the way that he drives and the way that he is around people, and every single person in that club, he'll know personally, and he'll also know what he expects from them. And I think they know what the other person expects from them as well. And that's management. My dad gave me the best skill when I was England cricket captain. People say, oh, did you read, The Art of Captaincy from Mike Brealey? I said, never. Did you ever, sit down with Nasser Hussain? I went, briefly. Mike Allington? I said, briefly. I said, the best skill that I ever got taught was from my dad. And my dad always said, remember, you might be a cricket captain, you might have to deliver tactics, you might have to change a bowler or two or put fielders in certain positions. But remember, there's one art of leadership that has to be spot on, and that's you've got to know the people that you're managing. And that was the best piece of advice I ever got, that if you're trying to lead anything or anyone, if you do not know that person, and it's not the cricketer. I knew the cricketers, but you need to really know the people. Who the people are? How do they get up in the morning? What is their motive? What are the mentalities? what are their drives, what are their ambitions. You know, sit down, understand who the person is, and then you've got more of a chance of managing that person when the pressure's on. And from the outside and knowing him really well, that is what Chris Wilder does. He knows every single person at Bramall Lane. So it's hard work, and that's what it takes. And maybe Sheffield Wednesday can just take a little leaf out of Chris Wilder's book and just add a little bit to Hillsborough, because it's. And I think you're right, Alan. I think a lot of Wednesday fans, we all want to hate Sheffield United, and the majority of the time we do. But I think there's an element that a Wednesday fan now is looking at United and look at a local boy in Chris Wilder going, it's horrible to say, but I think a lot of Wednesdayites are quite proud of seeing, you know, a Sheffield kid come through, play for the club, go away, you know, earn his stripes, managing Halifax, Alfreton, North. Now he's taking it on, you know, at his boyhood club, the club that he's supported all his life, and he's done a remarkable job. So, yeah, hate to say it, but he's done well, and Sheffield Wednesday should be taking a leaf out of what they've done.
Yeah, part of it, though, Michael, is that he's allowed to manage in an old-fashioned way. You could say he's earned that right from the success that he's had. But every major decision at Sheffield United has Chris Wilder at the centre of it. Sheffield Wednesday would not be alone in maybe deviating from that. Do you think Gary Monk can be trusted with a similar level of decision-making? What's your view of him?
Well, I don't know him, but if he is the manager, you've got to give him the trust. You know, if you appoint a manager to manage your football club, you have to give him that trust and that freedom. Not a freedom to spend as much as you want, but the freedom to be able to manage the football club. You know, the best football clubs for me are those that are managed from top to bottom. You mentioned Chris Wilder; he does it incredibly. You know, and if you really believe in a manager and you've given him that role, Gary's not been in that position long enough. You know, he really hasn't had a window where he can bring in his own signings in yet. There seems to me that there's a lot of fallout with contracts, and you know, certain players can't play because if they play so many games, there might be a payment required. It just all seems a little bit haphazard. There's only certain agents that the football club are using. When I hear that, I just think it's not right. That's not right. I like Gary Monk in terms of what he does. I think he stands well in terms of what he is in football. You only have to look at what he's done at other clubs. My worry is that he hasn't stayed at a club for long enough, you know, and that's what I'd like to have seen. You know, and maybe this is his chance to stay at Sheffield Wednesday for a number of years and build. But things take time. You know, you can always look for the quick fix, and you can look for, you know, an improvement over, you know, half a season. But you know, it does take time, football, and unfortunately, we don't have much patience as football fans. We want things to happen very, very quickly, and we want it to be turned around very, very quickly. And generally, it doesn't work that way. But from my experience of watching sport and sports teams, you have to have the management from the top, but you have to start building from the bottom. And if Sheffield Wednesday are honest and real in this environment, have they got it absolutely spot on? You know, have they got it absolutely spot on in everything that they're trying to achieve from bottom to top? And at the minute, you'd have to say they haven't.
Very frank views. Great to hear from you, Michael. Just before you go, cricket, you hinted earlier this summer that you believe we were going to see some. I say we were going to see some. Very few people around the ground this summer. I mean, that's going to be a weird experience, isn't it? But you're convinced there will be some, yeah? Yeah,
I think that, Alan, it has to happen because of the financial side of the game. You know, cricket is like most sports, but particularly cricket is so dependent on the money from pay-per-view, Sky Sports, and, you know, 6 test matches is the talk, maybe a few one-days. I can't see there being much county cricket, unfortunately, because I just think they'll make sure that they look after the international game to get that Sky money in. If it can be played, great, but I think first and foremost that, you know, everything else, the frontline workers, they have to make sure that they've got that sorted first and foremost, and then if sport can be played after that, fantastic, because I do think the nation needs that live action. It needs the morale boost that sport gives you, even though you can't be in the ground. Just watching it on the television and seeing a football match, a cricket match, tennis, golf, whatever your sport may be, there's something about live sport that gives us all something else to talk about other than a lot of the negativity that we're getting into conversations about now. So I think it will be played. It'll be very, very interesting because I do believe there are many sports people that get to the highest level that need a crowd. It's one of the reasons that stands the difference between, you know, good players and great players. The great players, they need that noise, they need that pressure, they need that adulation. You know, they need the crowd to sing their name, and I'll be very interested to see, you know, how players cope with that, you know, not being there. And it might be that some players are a little bit fearful of the crowd and fearful of the noise, that they might, you know, flourish in an environment where they don't have that. So it'd be very interesting to see how the players cope mentally across all sports. But for us who can be involved in the game and be there and commentate, talk about the game, we just need some live sport action back. And I think the nation does. I think we all just need to see a goal go in, Joe Root score another 100, Jimmy Anderson whip out a few wickets, you know, swinging those balls like we know he can. Whatever it may be, we just need to see it on the TV screens this summer at some stage.
Great, some very deep and profound thoughts to end on. I'll leave you to resume your little spat with Piers Morgan, which has been very entertaining.
Yeah, he's gone too far, Alan. I mean, I love him. I like him. I think he creates great entertainment. But you've got to remember that, you know, you can't be sending negativity out all the time. There's a lot of vulnerable people out there, and when you've got a mass following, yes, you know, you've got to state truth. You've got to bring the news, but just remember, we're all in a very fortunate position, and there's a lot of people that follow a lot of us that you've got to remember that they're not as fortunate as we are, and we've got to look after those people, because it might be that after this and we're through lockdown, there's going to be more difficulty than we're in at the minute. So we've got to look after the people out there.
Well, I think you'll attest that I haven't shouted at you or interrupted you. Michael Vaughan, it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you, and thank you so much for coming on. In the part two, we'll be joined by the new kid on the Sheffield Star block, as far as Al's reporting is concerned, Joe Cran, who's doing the job from South Africa at the moment. So we'll catch up with him shortly. Meantime, thanks again to Michael Vaughan. Been a pleasure. Great to see you, Michael.
Guys,
cheers.